Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a moment. We've stepped into a brand new year, and with it comes a brand new opportunity. But I need you to understand something right away. A new year does not automatically give you a new life. A new calendar does not change your results. What changes your life is a new mindset. And if you carry the same thinking you had last year into 2026, you are going to get the same outcomes, the same frustrations, and the same excuses, just with a different date on the wall. See, the problem with being average is not that you fail. The problem is that you settle. Average people wake up doing what's convenient instead of what's required. Average people talk about dreams but never put deadlines on them. Average people wait for the perfect moment, not realizing that the perfect moment is created by action. And if you don't decide right now to stop being average, average will quietly become your lifestyle. Average living always starts with average thinking, and most people never stop to question the thoughts that are quietly running their lives. They wake up every day on autopilot, repeating the same routines, speaking the same words, and expecting different results. That's not life-changing, that's life recycling. If you think like everyone else, react like everyone else, and plan like everyone else, you will end up exactly where everyone else is. Average thinking tells you to play it safe, to avoid embarrassment, to choose comfort over growth. It whispers that you should only try what feels guaranteed, only dream what feels realistic, and only aim as high as the people around you. Over time, that thinking becomes a cage, and most people don't even realize they lock themselves inside it. The mind is powerful, but it is also obedient. It believes what you tell it repeatedly. If you keep saying you're tired, you'll feel tired. If you keep saying you're not good enough, you'll start living like you're not. Average thinking is full of limits that sound logical but are actually lazy. It says, this is just how I am, or people like me don't do things like that. That kind of thinking doesn't come from truth. It comes from fear wearing a reasonable mask. The moment you accept those thoughts without challenging them, you give them permission to shape your future. Extraordinary lives begin the moment someone decides to think differently. Different thinking doesn't mean being unrealistic. It means being intentional. It means asking better questions. Instead of asking, what if this doesn't work? You ask, what if it does? Instead of asking, why is this so hard for me? You ask, what skill do I need to develop to handle this? Those small shifts in thought create massive shifts in behavior. When your thinking changes, your choices change. When your choices change, your habits change. And habits repeated daily quietly build your destiny. Average thinking waits for motivation. Elevated thinking builds discipline. Motivation is emotional and emotions change. Discipline is a decision, and decisions can be honored even on hard days. When your thinking matures, you stop relying on how you feel and start relying on what you committed to. You understand that progress is not dramatic most days. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's showing up when no one is watching. Average thinkers quit in those moments because they don't see instant rewards. Higher level thinkers trust the process because they understand compound growth. Another trap of average thinking is comparison. The moment you measure a journey against someone else's timeline, you lose focus on your own assignment. Comparison drains energy and distorts perspective. It makes you feel behind when you're actually building, and it makes you rush steps that are meant to teach you patience. Elevated thinking or preparation is not punishment, it's protection. Some delays are not denials, they are development seasons. When you think this way, frustration turns into focus. Your environment feeds your thinking whether you notice it or not. The conversations you entertain, the content you consume, and the people you spend time with all influence how high or how low your thoughts can go. Average environments normalize complaining, gossip, and excuses. Growth environments normalize accountability, solutions, and responsibility. If you stay in spaces that reward small thinking, it becomes harder to imagine big outcomes. That's why changing your mindset sometimes requires changing what you allow around you. Average thinking also avoids responsibility. It blames circumstances, people, timing, and luck. Elevated thinking accepts ownership. Ownership is empowering because it puts control back in your hands. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting to be rescued and start building. You realize that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you do control how you respond, how you prepare, and how you persist. The truth is, nobody accidentally lives an extraordinary life. It is built thought by thought, decision by decision. The moment you decide that average is no longer acceptable, your mind begins to search for better options. You start noticing opportunities you used to ignore. You start believing you are capable of more, and that belief fuels action. Change does not start in your bank account, your job title, or your circumstances. It starts in the quiet conversations you have with yourself every single day. Fear, excuses, and comfort are the three silent enemies that keep most people stuck in the same place year after year. They don't show up loudly or aggressively. They whisper. They sound reasonable. They convince you that waiting is wise, that staying where you are is safe, and that trying later somehow makes more sense than trying now. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they listen to these voices long enough for an action to become a habit. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it is expensive over time. It costs you growth, confidence, and eventually self-respect. Fear is usually the first wall. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of looking foolish. But the truth is, fear is not a stop sign, it's a signal. It shows you exactly where your next level is hiding. Anything that has the power to change your life will first challenge your comfort zone. Average living teaches you to avoid fear, to retreat when you feel uncertain. Elevated living teaches you to move forward while your hands are shaking. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more. Excuses grow where fear is entertained. They help you justify inaction so you can still feel good about staying the same. You tell yourself you don't have enough time, enough money, enough support, or enough experience. But somehow you always have enough time for distractions, enough energy for things that don't move you forward, and enough excuses to explain why you haven't started. Excuses are comforting lies. They protect your ego, but they poison your potential. Every excuse you accept becomes a brick in the wall between you and your future. Comfort is the most dangerous enemy because it doesn't feel like an enemy at all. It feels like peace. It feels like stability. But comfort slowly shrinks your capacity. When you get too comfortable, you stop learning. You stop stretching. You stop dreaming. You start doing just enough to get by, not enough to grow. Over time, comfort convinces you that average is normal and that wanting more is risky or unrealistic. That's how people wake up 10 years later wondering where their ambition went. Growth demands disruption. It requires you to interrupt patterns that feel familiar, but lead nowhere. It requires you to choose progress over pleasure and long-term vision over short-term relief. This doesn't mean burning yourself out or living in constant stress. It means intentionally doing things that build strength, skill, and confidence, even when they are inconvenient. Discomfort, when chosen on purpose, becomes a training ground instead of a threat. One of the biggest lies fear tells you is that you need to be ready before you act. Readiness is a myth. Nobody feels ready to step into a bigger version of themselves. Readiness is built by movement. Confidence is built by evidence, and evidence only comes from action. Every time you act despite fear, you teach your mind that you are capable. Every time you retreat, you teach your mind that fear is in control. Over time, whichever lesson you repeat becomes your identity. Excuses also keep you focused on what you can't control instead of what you can. You can't control the economy. other people's opinions, or perfect timing. But you can control your effort, your consistency, and your willingness to learn. When you shift your focus to what is within your control, your power returns. Progress may be slow at first, but it becomes steady. And steady progress beats bursts of motivation, followed by long periods of inactivity. Letting go of comfort doesn't mean abandoning security. It means redefining it. True security comes from skills, adaptability, and self-trust, not from staying in the same safe place forever. The world changes too fast to rely on comfort as a strategy. Those who grow with own to be uncomfortable long enough to evolve. Fear never fully disappears. Excuses never completely vanish. Comfort will always invite you to stay. The difference between average and extraordinary is not the absence of these things, but the refusal to let them decide your direction. Every time you choose courage over comfort, action over excuses, and growth over fear, you reclaim a little more of your potential. And over time, those choices reshape not just what you do, but who you become. Most people believe motivation is the secret ingredient to success, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes depending on mood, energy, weather, and circumstances. One good speech, one powerful video, or one emotional moment can light a fire, but that fire fades if there is nothing feeding it. This is where discipline separates average results from extraordinary ones. Discipline is not about feeling inspired. It is about honoring commitments long after the feeling is gone. When motivation disappears, discipline steps in and carries the vision forward. Discipline begins with a decision, a clear, non-negotiable choice that certain actions will happen regardless of how you feel. Average living leaves room for negotiation. It says, I'll do if I feel like it, or I'll start again tomorrow. Disciplined thinking removes those escape routes. It understands that progress is built on routines, not emotions. The days you least want to show up are often the days that matter most because they train your character, not just your skill. The power of discipline is that it simplifies life. Instead of waking up every day deciding whether or not to do the work, the decision has already been made. You simply execute. This reduces mental fatigue and increases consistency. Consistency is where real change happens. One workout doesn't transform a body, one focused day doesn't build a career, and one good choice doesn't reshape a life. But small, disciplined actions repeated over time create momentum that becomes hard to stop. Discipline also builds self-trust. Every time you do what you said you would do, you send a signal to your mind that you are reliable. That trust compounds. Confidence stops being something you hope for and becomes something you carry. On the other hand, every broken promise to yourself weakens that trust. Over time, a lack of discipline doesn't just delay results, it damages belief in your own word. Rebuilding that belief starts with small, kept promises, not dramatic changes. Many people think discipline is restrictive, but in reality, it is liberating. It frees you from procrastination, excuses, and last-minute stress. When you live undisciplined, everything feels urgent and overwhelming. When you live with discipline, you move with intention, you are prepared more often than not, and preparation creates calm. That calm allows you to think clearly, make better decisions, and respond instead of react. Discipline is also deeply connected to identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. When discipline becomes part of who you are, success becomes a byproduct rather than a constant struggle. You stop chasing outcomes and start embodying behaviors. The focus shifts from, what do I want, to who do I need to become? That shift changes everything because identity drives behavior more powerfully than desire ever could. There will be days when discipline feels heavy, days when progress seems invisible and effort feels wasted. These are the moments where most people quit, not because they are incapable, but because they expected discipline to feel rewarding every day. It doesn't. Sometimes discipline feels lonely. Sometimes it feels boring. Sometimes it feels unfair. But those moments are quietly shaping resilience. They are building a version of you that can handle pressure, responsibility, and bigger opportunities. Discipline does not require perfection. It requires direction. Missing a day is not failure, quitting is. Disciplined people don't beat themselves up for slipping. They recommit quickly. They understand that momentum is built by returning to the process, not by punishing mistakes. This mindset keeps progress alive, even when life gets messy. When motivation fades, discipline becomes the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the quiet force that works when no one is watching and no applause is coming. Over time, discipline turns effort into excellence and intention into results. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes how you live, one deliberate choice at a time. The direction of your life is heavily influenced by the people you surround yourself with, whether you realize it or not. Human beings are adaptable, and that adaptability works both for growth and for stagnation. When you spend time around people who complain, settle, and make excuses, those behaviors begin to feel normal. Not because you agree with them consciously, but because repetition lowers resistance. Over time, your standards quietly drop, and what once felt unacceptable becomes familiar. This is how potential slowly fades without a dramatic failure ever taking place. Your environment shapes your thinking long before it shapes your results. Conversations become internal dialogue. Jokes become beliefs. Opinions become limits. If the dominant voices around you consistently doubt ambition, criticize effort, or mock discipline, your mind starts to question its own drive. Even strong dreams can weaken when they are constantly exposed to small thinking. This is why some people feel motivated alone but discouraged in groups. Their vision grows in silence but shrinks in company. Raising your environment does not mean rejecting people. It means protecting your future. Not everyone is meant to go with you to your next level. Some people are assigned to your past, some to your present, and only a few to your future. Holding on to everyone out of loyalty can quietly become disloyalty to your own growth. Growth often requires difficult choices, including spending less time in places and with people that no longer align with who you are becoming. The people you allow close to you influence your standards of what is possible. When you see others taking risks, learning new skills, and holding themselves accountable, excellence begins to feel achievable instead of intimidating. Their behavior raises your expectations of yourself. It challenges you without words. In the same way, being surrounded by people who avoid responsibility can make discipline feel extreme and ambition feel unnecessary. Environment doesn't force decisions, but it strongly suggests them. This influence is not limited to people alone. The content you consume daily plays a similar role. What you watch, read, and listen to feeds your mindset. Constant exposure to negativity, drama, and distraction trains your mind to expect chaos and instant gratification. Intentional exposure to learning, insight, and growth trains your mind to think long-term. Your environment is not just physical, it is mental. And your mental environment determines how clearly you can see opportunities. Changing your environment can feel uncomfortable because it often requires temporary loneliness. When you step away from familiar circles, there may be a period where you feel isolated. This is not a sign you are doing something wrong. It is a sign you are making space for something new. Growth often begins in solitude, where clarity replaces noise. In that space, you reconnect with your goals without outside interference. An elevated environment does not mean everyone around you must be perfect or successful. It means they are intentional, they respect effort, they value progress. They encourage accountability instead of enabling excuses. Even one or two people with this mindset can shift your entire trajectory. Quality matters more than quantity when it comes to influence. A small circle aligned with growth is more powerful than a large crowd aligned with comfort. You also contribute to your environment. As you grow, you set a new standard. Some people will be inspired by that and rise with you. Others will resist it because it forces them to confront their own choices. Resistance often shows up as criticism or jokes, but it is usually rooted in insecurity. Understanding this helps you respond with maturity instead of guilt. You are not responsible for making others comfortable with your growth. Your environment should stretch you, not shrink you. It should challenge your thinking, not numb it. When you intentionally place yourself in spaces that demand more from you, you begin to rise naturally. Your vision expands. Your tolerance for average decreases over time. The right environment doesn't just support your growth, it accelerates it, shaping a future that once felt out of reach into something that feels inevitable. Faith without action is only a good intention, and good intentions do not change lives. Many people believe that having faith means waiting, hoping, and trusting that things will somehow work out on their own. But real faith has movement in it. It shows up in effort, persistence, and responsibility. Faith is not passive, it is active. It believes before there is evidence and works before there is a guarantee. When faith and action come together, ordinary effort turns into extraordinary results. Faith gives you vision. It allows you to see a future that does not yet exist. It helps you believe in yourself when your circumstances say otherwise. Without faith, you limit your goals to what you can already see and control. You only attempt what feels safe and predictable. Faith lifts that ceiling. It allows you to imagine more, reach further, and trust that your effort is meaning even when results are delayed. But vision alone is not enough. Vision without action becomes frustration. Action is the proof of faith. It is how belief becomes visible. When you truly believe something is possible, your behavior changes. You prepare differently. You sacrifice differently. You move differently. Action turns faith from a feeling into a force. It is easy to say you believe, but belief that never produces effort is belief in name only. Every meaningful breakthrough in life requires steps taken before clarity arrives. You rarely see the full staircase. You move because you trust the next step will appear. Many people struggle because they separate faith and action. They pray but never plan. They hope but never practice. They believe but never build. This creates confusion and disappointment. Faith does not replace work, it gives work direction. Action does not replace faith, it gives faith substance. When the two are aligned, effort feels purposeful instead of exhausting. You understand that every step, even the difficult ones, is moving you closer to something greater. Faith plus action also changes how you respond to setbacks. When things go wrong, people without faith quit because they see obstacles as evidence that they should stop. People with faith but no action wait, assuming things will fix themselves. But people who combine faith with action adjust. They learn. They try again. They understand that resistance is part of refinement, not a sign of failure. Their confidence is not shaken by delay because they trust the process as much as the outcome. Action requires courage because it exposes you to uncertainty. There is no faith in doing only what feels guaranteed. Real faith shows up when you take steps that stretch you, steps that require growth. Learn in humility. You may not feel ready. You may not feel qualified. But faith reminds you that readiness is developed through obedience and effort, not before it. Each action taken in faith builds capacity you didn't have before. Faith also keeps action alive when results are slow. Without faith, delayed results feel like wasted effort. With faith, delayed results feel like preparation. You understand that timing matters and that some outcomes require maturity before arrival. This perspective protects you from burnout and impatience. You stop measuring success only by immediate rewards and start valuing progress, discipline, and alignment. Faith plus action reshapes identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who hopes and start seeing yourself as someone who builds. You become proactive instead of reactive. Responsibility replaces excuses. You trust yourself more because you see evidence of your own effort. This self-trust fuels consistency, and consistency multiplies results. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes familiar because you grew into it. There will be moments when action feels heavy and faith feels tested. Those moments are not signs of misalignment, they are invitations to deepen both. Action strengthens faith by producing evidence of resilience. Faith strengthens action by giving meaning to persistence. Together, they create momentum that survives doubt, delay, and difficulty. Extraordinary outcomes are rarely the result of talent alone. They are the result of belief that refuses to stay idle and effort that refuses to give up. When faith fuels your vision and action fuels your days, progress becomes inevitable. You stop waiting for change and start participating in it, step by step, with purpose and conviction. Consistency is the quiet force behind every uncommon result you admire. Most people overestimate what can be done in a day and underestimate what can be done in a year. They look for breakthroughs, dramatic changes, and overnight success while ignoring the small, repeatable actions that actually build greatness. Average living is built on inconsistency, working hard when you feel inspired and disappearing when things get boring or difficult. Extraordinary living is built on showing up again and again, especially on the days that feel ordinary. Small habits seem insignificant in the moment, which is why they are easy to neglect. Skipping one workout, missing one practice session, or delaying one important task feels harmless. But habits do not work in isolation, they work in accumulation. Each small action is a vote for the person you are becoming. When those votes are cast consistently, they create an identity. You don't suddenly become disciplined, focused, or successful. You become the kind of person who practices disciplined behaviors daily. Consistency removes pressure. Instead of trying to change everything at once, you focus on doing a few important things well, repeatedly. This approach is sustainable. It respects the reality of human energy and attention. Average thinkers chase intensity and burn out quickly. Elevated thinkers chase rhythm. They understand that progress is more reliable when it is steady. A moderate effort repeated daily will outperform extreme effort applied occasionally. One of the greatest benefits of consistency is momentum. Momentum is powerful because it makes action easier over time. The first step always feels the heaviest. Once you move consistently, resistance decreases. Tasks that once felt difficult become familiar. Familiarity builds confidence, and confidence fuels further action. This upward cycle is how small habits grow into major life changes. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you keep a small commitment, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on your own word. This self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Many people struggle with confidence, not because they lack ability, but because they have a history of inconsistency. Rebuilding confidence does not require dramatic victories. It requires small promises kept daily. Over time, those kept promises reshape how you see yourself. Results from consistency are often delayed, which is why many people quit too early. They don't see immediate change and assume their effort is not working. In reality, consistency compounds quietly. Like interest in a bank account, growth is happening beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Those who understand this are patient. They continue showing up, even when there is no applause, trusting that results will catch up to effort in time. Consistency also simplifies decision-making. When behaviors are habitual, they require less mental energy. You no longer debate whether to act, you simply follow the pattern you have established. This frees your mind for creativity, problem-solving, and higher-level thinking. Inconsistent living creates constant decision fatigue, while consistent living creates clarity and calm. Life will interrupt your routines. There will be setbacks, disruptions, and unexpected challenges. Consistency does not mean perfection. It means returning quickly. Missing once is human. Missing repeatedly is a pattern.